The world woke up to a sentence no one expected to hear in 2026. A sitting president had allegedly been captured by a foreign power. No warning, no confirmation, just explosions in the night, and a claim that instantly shook global politics. Smoke was rising over Caracas, power was cut across entire neighborhoods, and fighter jets were reportedly flying low over the capital. Then came the statement that changed everything. Donald Trump said Venezuela's president was no longer in his own country. But here's the problem: no photos, no footage, no proof. Just silence, confusion, and a question that still hasn't been answered. Did this really happen, or are we watching the most dangerous standoff of the decade unfold in real time? It started in the dead of night. Around 2 a.m., residents in Caracas were jolted awake by a series of loud explosions that echoed across the city. Within minutes, videos began surfacing online showing fireballs in the sky, thick smoke rising near major military installations, and the sound of aircraft cutting through the darkness. Entire neighborhoods suddenly lost electricity, plunging the capital into confusion and fear. Reports quickly pointed to key locations being hit: air bases, military complexes, and areas close to the presidential palace. Venezuelan officials claimed both civilian and military sites were struck, calling it a direct act of foreign aggression. As emergency sirens wailed and people rushed into the streets, the government moved fast, declaring a national emergency and activating defense plans. But while Venezuela was scrambling to respond, something even more unsettling was happening behind the scenes. As the smoke was still rising and no clear picture had emerged of the damage, a statement from Washington was already being prepared. And when it finally came out, it shifted the story from airstrikes to something far bigger. Because this wasn't just about bombs anymore. What came next caught everyone off guard. While officials in Caracas were still trying to assess the damage, Donald Trump went public with a claim that instantly changed the tone of the crisis. According to him, U.S. forces hadn't just carried out strikes. They had taken Venezuela's president and his wife into custody and flown them out of the country. The wording was blunt and confident, leaving little room for nuance. Trump framed it as a decisive operation, carried out alongside U.S. law enforcement, suggesting this wasn't only a military move but part of something much bigger. Within minutes, the statement spread across news networks and social media, triggering disbelief, shock, and outright confusion. Yet for such a massive claim, there was one glaring problem. No images, no video, no official proof. Even U.S. agencies stayed unusually quiet, offering only carefully worded confirmations that avoided details. Supporters called it a historic takedown. Critics called it reckless posturing. And in the middle of it all, the most important question remained unanswered. If Venezuela's leader had really been captured, why had no one seen him? And as that silence stretched on, the uncertainty only grew, because the longer Maduro stayed out of sight, the more the rumors began to take over. As the hours passed, the situation only became more unsettling. Venezuela's own government admitted it did not know where President Maduro or his wife were. There was no emergency address, no televised appearance, no familiar images meant to reassure the public. Instead, officials went on state television demanding proof that the president was even alive. That silence opened the floodgates. Online, speculation spread at lightning speed. Some claimed Maduro had been secretly moved out of the country before the strikes. Others suggested he was being held somewhere undisclosed, cut off from communication. There were even rumors that negotiations were happening behind closed doors, though no evidence backed any of it. Reports, posts, and anonymous sources flooded timelines, but nothing could be independently verified. What made it more alarming was how unusual this disappearance was. In moments of crisis, leaders typically rush in front of cameras. This time, there was nothing. No voice. No image. Just unanswered questions and growing tension inside Venezuela. And while the world focused on where Maduro might be, Washington began shifting the conversation entirely, away from his location and toward something that suggested this had been planned long before the first explosion. That shift became clear when U.S. officials started outlining why this operation had supposedly happened in the first place. The conversation moved away from airstrikes and capture claims, and toward a legal narrative that painted Maduro as a longtime target. The U.S. Attorney General announced that Maduro and his wife were facing a list of serious charges in a New York court, language that suggested this wasn't a sudden decision, but the end of a much longer pursuit. According to U.S. statements, The allegations tied Venezuela's leadership to organized criminal networks and weapons-related conspiracies. The wording was deliberate and heavy, meant to frame the operation as justice rather than aggression. Officials spoke about accountability, consequences, and facing trial on American soil, reinforcing the idea that this was a law enforcement moment, not just a military one. But outside the United States, that explanation didn't land the way Washington expected. Critics pointed out that accusations are not convictions, and that announcing charges during an active military crisis only raised more doubts about motive and timing. To many observers, it felt less like closure and more like escalation. And as governments around the world began responding, it became clear this story was no longer just about Venezuela or the United States, it was about the balance of power itself. The global reaction was swift and deeply divided. Within hours, governments around the world began weighing in, and the tone was far from celebratory. European leaders called for restraint, urging all sides to respect international law and warning that unilateral action could spiral out of control. Behind the diplomatic language was a clear concern: this had crossed a line. Russia and China condemned the operation outright, describing it as an act of armed aggression and a dangerous precedent. Iran echoed those warnings, accusing Washington of undermining state sovereignty. Across Latin America, leaders feared the fallout more than the headlines. Border nations quietly prepared for refugee surges, while analysts warned that Venezuela could be pushed toward internal conflict. Even inside the United States, support wasn't overwhelming. Recent polls showed most Americans opposed direct military action, raising uncomfortable questions about how much public backing this operation actually had. Experts warned that removing a leader doesn't remove instability, it often creates a vacuum, and vacuums rarely stay empty for long. And as outrage, fear, and uncertainty spread across continents, many began pointing out something uncomfortable. This wasn't an isolated event. It fit a pattern, one the world has seen before, with consequences that still linger today. For many observers, this moment felt eerily familiar. History is filled with examples where the United States stepped in, promised order, and left behind years of instability. From Cold War interventions to more recent regime change efforts, the pattern has often been the same: a swift operation followed by long-term consequences no one fully planned for. Latin America, in particular, carries deep scars from past interference. Decades ago, similar justifications were used to remove leaders viewed as threats, only for nations to spiral into dictatorship, civil unrest, or economic collapse. That history is why the reaction across the region has been so tense. It's not just about Venezuela, it's about reopening old wounds that never truly healed. Analysts now question whether this operation will follow the same path. Even if a leadership change is forced, rebuilding institutions, restoring trust, and stabilizing the economy could take years, if not decades. And unlike past interventions, today's global landscape is more divided, with rival powers watching closely and taking notes. Which brings the story to its most dangerous edge yet, because what happens next in Venezuela won't just affect one country. It could redefine how power is used, challenged, and justified across the world. Amid all this chaos, the human element cannot be ignored. Venezuelans on the ground face uncertainty, fear, and disruption to daily life. Reports of explosions, blackouts, and displaced communities paint a picture of a society caught in the crossfire of global power struggles. Families are forced to make impossible choices, and the longer the crisis drags on, the deeper the scars left on ordinary people. At the same time, political factions within Venezuela are repositioning. Opposition leaders see an opening, yet many remain wary of foreign influence, fearing that external involvement could replace one set of problems with another. Meanwhile, loyalists to Maduro's movement are grappling with the shock of losing their leader and the moral blow it delivers to the ideology that has dominated the country for decades. The military's next moves remain unclear, and speculation is rampant. With so many players, domestic and international, watching, any misstep could trigger wider unrest. For analysts, the question is no longer just whether Maduro will return or be tried abroad. It's whether Venezuela can navigate a path toward stability, or if the country is on the brink of a longer, more painful struggle. And as the world watches, one thing becomes painfully clear. The events unfolding in Venezuela are far from over, and the consequences could echo far beyond its borders. The situation in Venezuela has exposed more than just a struggle for power. It has revealed the fragility of international norms, the complexity of regional politics, and the human cost of high-stakes intervention. From the sudden removal of Maduro to the global backlash, the story is a stark reminder that no action happens in isolation. Historical patterns, regional tensions, and economic stakes all collide, making the outcome unpredictable and potentially long-lasting. As the dust settles, questions remain. Can Venezuela rebuild after years of turmoil? Will new leadership bring stability, or will foreign involvement deepen divisions? And what precedent does this set for global power dynamics in the years to come? One thing is certain: the world is watching, and Venezuela's next chapter will not just define its future, but may reshape how nations navigate sovereignty, intervention, and the balance of power across the globe.